Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content from across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Trevor Kerth of Archwood Games, creators of Pantheum, Demigods of Olympia, which is currently on Kickstarter. Trevor, welcome to the binge. How you doing, sir?
How's it going, James? So happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
It is great having you on this podcast. I saw this. I actually opted into the pre kind of VIP program that you put out
Oh, perfect.
a few weeks back, and so I've been kind of following this. I'm like, oh, it's coming. I can't wait to see how this goes. So we're gonna get into this game, and there's some elements that I'm pretty excited about as we talk about the page, because I think there's some really cool things on this page that I want other people who are maybe launching games to pay attention to, because it's something I think they could trace over to when they're doing their games. But first, you and I don't know each other. Today is the first time we're meeting. You're US based, I think, right?
Yeah, so I'm in San Diego, California, down over here. Loving it here. Our weather's super hot right now. Eventually, it might cool down to the very low 70s down here, but we're doing good over in San Diego.
Oh, that's amazing. And you're relatively new to this industry. I think this is your first game that at least the first one you've published. But what do you do outside of board games? Do you have a day job, or how do you fill your time?
Yeah, so Pantheum has been sort of in development and nights and weekends kind of thing. My day job is in manufacturing.
Oh, wow.
So thankfully, I've got at least that side of the whole industry covered. I actually go over to China about once a year and do manufacturing for consumer electronics.
Oh, wow.
So where a lot of game designers are intimidated by the manufacturing side of things, I've got that figured out, but I'm new at the marketing and the design and the art and everything there, but found a great team to help me with all of that.
Oh, that's cool. So when you're over in China, is it like you're there on business, but do you have some flexibility? You can say, oh, I'm going to actually go look at this factory over here that kind of makes board games, or like,
Yeah, so actually, I have a trip coming up in November where I'm going over on the company's dollar, and I actually asked my team. I was like, "Hey, could I stick around for an extra day?" So they're all going to fly home. I'm going to stick around and go visit my manufacturer over there and talk with them and see the first prototypes coming off the line. So thankfully, they're super helpful. They're excited for it. They're board gamers too. So they get it. So yeah, I'll be going over there and tacking on an extra day to my normal business trip.
and who's the manufacturer? Who are you using?
So I'm using Do Fine Games.
Okay.
They
Okay.
make Cascadia, they make
Yep.
Leaf, some of these other really pretty games. So I've been working with them for about the last 9 months. They've
Oh,
been
wow.
super great. I'm really happy with them. I talked with some of the bigger players in the board game space, but sort of hard to get in the door. Do Fine was really responsive. Really like the team I've got over there, and they were working great with me.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I when I talk to people that are, trying to kind of come up with board games, and they're saying, I want to go on Kickstarter and so forth. Manufacturing is like that is paramount, right? You got to get
Yeah,
that figured out and have it buttoned down
for
before you
sure.
launch. And I still get shocked from time to time. I'll come across an individual that's running a campaign and it's very successful. And then kind of off air, I'm talking to them about their campaign and they're still kind of figuring out the manufacturing. And it's like, whoa, like this is probably the riskiest piece is the
Yeah.
manufacturing side, right? So the fact that you've got this kind of figured out, congratulations, that's awesome. But
Oh, thanks.
that's good for your backers too, because that would give your
Yeah.
backers the confidence that, okay, I'm probably going to get this game,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the risk, right? A lot of people think, gosh, this looks like a good game, but hey, first time publisher, do they know what they're doing? Am I going to be left kind of holding the bag here? Are they going to take the money and run? Are they going to kind of learn on the go? And there's
Yeah.
tons of examples of that where you see these games that never end up delivering because the people didn't figure that out ahead of time, and they just got in over their head and they thought, okay, this should be good. And then once you actually get into the nitty gritty of it, you realize that it's a complicated process, right?
Yeah.
And
And it
it's
feels like it's a lot of people feel like it's the least fun part of it. Everyone wants to be designing mechanics. Everyone wants
yeah,
to be making art. Everyone wants to be getting more sales. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I have to put together business contracts and I have to proofread things and I
yeah,
have to double check components and why did this come in the wrong color and all sorts of stuff like that. So, my goal is to make sure that absolutely this is gonna get manufactured. And I'm really hoping to get it manufactured quickly. The fact that I've kind of got all the manufacturing
yeah.
set up and already moving along and tools made and everything like that. I'm hoping to beat my timeline that I'm telling people I'm going to give them the game by.
Super cool. Now you said that there's gamers in your company as well. So is board gaming something you've been doing for your whole life, or when did you get into this hobby?
Yeah, so it was definitely in college back in sort of 2010 when Settlers of Catan was kind of the hot thing, and then Dominion came out, and so that's really what started the love. I brought that into the workplace, and so I got all of my coworkers addicted to board games alongside of me. They weren't board gamers before I showed up,
Yeah.
but now they are. Yeah, and my friends and I, we would kind of try to create our own games by smashing two games together. So we would take Battleship and Tic-Tac-Toe and figure out how to put those together. Or one of my favorites is Settlers of Crapton. So you take a Settlers of Catan board,
Yeah.
and then you put a gambling craps mat next to it, and you bet all your resources on the craps mat like you're in Vegas playing craps.
Yeah.
And so you can, you put two sheep on the pass line on the craps table if anyone knows how to play craps, and you roll the dice and you're like, yes, I won 45 sheep. And then you're able to spend those in Catan. So we've been combining games together for a long time. We have all of our own little funny rules. Draft chess was another one where each piece has a price, and you start with a set amount of money and you buy chess pieces, and then you play against each other with whatever chess pieces you bought. So it's been a hobby of just kind of smashing games up and coming up with my own games for, with my friends in my board gaming group. But about 2 years ago, I landed on something that I thought would be really fun to kind of continue to pursue. And then that's sort of what turned into Pantheum.
Oh, cool. And did I read somewhere that you run like a gaming group too, as well? Like,
Yeah, so for the past year, about a year, the San Diego Board Game Design Group. So we meet at a board game shop called Game Empire, and every month we meet up and we invite a bunch of playtesters and a bunch of other designers to come in,
Yeah.
and we give everyone sort of a different time slot to come up with their different ideas. We kind of have all sorts of different games. Sometimes people come up and they just like, hey, I have a concept and I wrote it down on 4x5 cards. Let's just throw these down until something happens. And some people have games that they've been demoing at Gen Con and they just want to button up the mechanics in the rule book. Sometimes we have people come in and just read rule books, and we sit there and just read their rule book to see if the flow kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was something that I was looking for about a year ago when I was sitting here with my game. And there's a lot of online presence, which is great, but there's something about meeting in person that just really gives you the ability to feel the cards, to see how it lays out on the table, to see if people are engaged with it. That really, really helps. So putting that together about a year ago, my co-founder and I, Ronald, of the Board Game Design Group, we put that together and we started working on that and getting more people to join on that. So now we've got about 12 to 15 different people that join every week, and that's happening this Saturday, actually. So going to be talking to them and hopefully promoting my game at the Board Game Design Group.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been really good. The community is great. People let each other know about different events going on, and just really, really positive feedback. So it's been a really great community to be a part of.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, when you're saying like this whole smashing of games, I mean that's this hobby in a nutshell, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? When you think of like any game that comes out, and I was talking to somebody the other day. I've run like a meetup here in my local city, and you have anywhere from 15, 20 people come out, and it's not a design thing. It's more just coming out just to play games, right?
Oh, cool.
And you have, and I was talking to this individual, and they said, "How do you guys?" Like, it seems like none of you guys have played this game before that this person just brought to the table, but you all seem like you're kind of picking it up very, very quickly. And what I was explaining to them is the more games and variety you play, the more you start kind of seeing these common threads of different mechanisms that show up across different games. And you realize that most games are just combinations, permutations of different mechanisms that they brought together, and then you slap a new theme on it, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of creates a shorthand where the more you play, the more that shorthand kind of develops. But that is essentially what this entire hobby is. It's okay, now the next generation is going to take the generation that came before it, and they're going to take this combination from this mechanism from this game and this one from over here. They're going to put them together, and maybe they're going to add a new thing or a new innovation to try to create something new and interesting with a new theme. And then that becomes kind of the I don't know how many generations now we're in this hobby industry.
Right.
But that's essentially what it is. And it sounds like you've kind of put kind of that into like almost a methodology at a younger age, because combining chess and gambling, all this kind of stuff, right? That it probably sets you on that next step of as a career, or a side career of game design. The kind of the sky's the limit as to what you can create. Right now, it's just coming up with themes to kind of put over top of some of these combinations and permutations. Is that fair?
Definitely. And so we've got sort of our game group. I host one at my house every Wednesday, and we got about like 9 to 10 people that show up. And at this point, you know, we kind of understand the board gaming shorthand. If there's a number at the top right side of a card, it's probably the cost or the power of the card. If there's text on the bottom that's bold, that's probably its ability. If it's italics, it's probably flavor text, and you can probably ignore that. You know, things like that, that you just kind of start seeing these things. And it can sound like maybe board games are getting stale, but I really feel like it's creating a common language between all of our board games so that you can pick up a game and quickly understand. You don't have to kind of come up with this whole new language or identity for the game. You can see it. You know, Dune Imperium was one that we played a couple nights ago. You look at the board, you look at the cards, and you're like, I could probably figure out how this goes because I've played games for the past 6 years, and you know, there's some new interesting mechanics going on here. But for the most part, like, they're using the same common language, and I think that really, really helps.
Yeah. So you're saying that this is how you kind of came up with Pantheum is you had these. So what did you kind of combine, and when did you come up with the idea of we're going to put these together and we're kind of thematic as, I guess, the gods? And kind of part two of that is which came first, the theme or the mechanisms?
Great question. There's a long story here. I'll keep it really short here. It started as my friends and I doing a 30-day challenge. We gave ourselves 30 days to come up with a board game, and it was just something fun that we were doing. So we all sat down and just kind of like individually came up with a game in 30 days. One of my friends made Battleship, but he made a bunch of new rules. So you had like airstrikes and mines and all sorts of things like that. Mine, I just started with combining tic-tac-toe and rock, paper, scissors, and I was just going to put those together as best I could. And then it turned into this whole thing where it was grass, fire, water, and those would put each other out and defeat each other, blah, blah, blah. After 30 days, I finished the game, and it was absolutely terrible. It was god awful. But it was so much fun working with our friends and like putting it together that it just turned into this thing of like, oh, well, it's wrong here, but maybe we can fix it with this, and maybe we can fix it with this, and maybe we can fix it with this. And so we all kind of had our own games that we kind of continued, and everyone's sort of in their different stages with their games at this point. But it just kept on growing and growing and growing. And now it's unrecognizable as tic-tac-toe meets rock, paper, scissors. It's its whole new world. It's its own economy. It's its own powers. Everything has grown from where it originally started. And so it was the mechanics that started. I wanted to have a really good, satisfying sort of spatial game with this engine building of getting new powers to interact with the board. So it started with that. And then after that, I found a theme that I liked. And originally, Pantheum, it's focused around the Greek gods. It was originally called Gerrymandering, the game, where you played as politicians and you tried to restructure zones to get the most votes. But it ended up too sort of comical of a tone for the level of play that it was. If you see Gerrymandering the game, you think of kind of a tongue-in-cheek card game with just a bunch of silly quips on the cards. And this was much deeper and much more strategic than that. So that came just from my love of Greek mythology. You know, I grew up reading the Percy Jackson series from Rick Riordan, and I've just always been fascinated with it. And it just fit really, really well. In Pantheum, you're kind of pretending to work together with your opponents, but really you're in it for your own goal. And I felt like that really fit the Greek gods and how they're always kind of squabbling with each other over petty little things. You know, they've got their little feuds going on, and it's really the mortals down on Earth that are paying the price for these gods fighting and having sort of sibling rivalry with each other. So that's really what I liked about the game. Is just about every way you score can either give other people points, but sneakily give yourself points as well. You can do things that benefit yourself, but also help other people, or you can hurt everyone at once. There's not much secret take that, but there's a lot of interaction between the players. And I really like games where you really are playing against the other players, not just racing each other on your own kind of game on your own board in front of you. So this does have a lot of interaction where you are kind of like, oh, you know, Ares really messed with Athena over here. So it's stuff like that that just makes it feel much more alive in the game.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the funding so far. So, and I have on the screen here for people that are watching on the replay or live. And I'll put this in Canadian dollars. Is the only way I can see it. But you got $155,000 on a $13,500 goal. So congrats on that. That is huge.
Thank you.
Still got 22 days to go. So man, this is gonna have a very strong finish. And for your first game, like,
let's go.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. The visuals are great. The one thing I did want to point out that I was mentioning at the beginning was when I watched who did your video, by the way?
That was Cardboard Knot is the name of the company that did
Okay.
it. He's got a little plaque at the end of the video. You can go to his link. I thought he did a really good job with the animations.
He did a fantastic job. And I'm sure, of course, you would do the scripting of it, right?
Hmm.
What I really liked about this video, and this is the example I want, if there's somebody who's looking at creating a page of their own, something they should probably check out, is this video is very clear on what the game is and kind of the essence of how to play the game. And I was surprised because most kind of these trailer videos that you see for games, as you watch, you're like, okay, that's cool thematically. Now let me read down below and try to figure out what is this game all about. Where you seem to have kind of really encapsulated that very tightly in that initial video, which I thought was really great. It makes the decision process probably very easy for people. So congrats on that.
Oh, well, thanks.
And then your page is laid out, of course, very, very well. I noticed that you guys are signed up with LaunchBoom. We've had a number of guests on the podcast. We've even had Mark, the owner of LaunchBoom, on the podcast. So obviously, I'm a big fan of the work they do. How did the LaunchBoom work for you on this?
Yeah, so LaunchBoom was super valuable. You know, I'm coming at this ready to manufacture something, but I have no idea how to get an audience that wants to buy what I'm manufacturing. So LaunchBoom was really, really useful. Funny enough, one of the co-founders, his name is Victor. Him and I went to college together, and
Wow.
we used to be friends 10 years ago. And I say used to be like there was a falling out. You know, we just went our separate ways. But after 10 years, I saw him on LinkedIn. I saw him on LaunchBoom, and we reconnected. And he's been helping me so much. But they do, you know, in terms of what they offered me, it's incredible with the amount of like suggestions for how to build an audience, how to get an email list, what is the structure for engaging with them, how do you set up ads, what makes a good ad, when do you know if your ads are working or not working. So many times, you know, Kickstarters, they have a really rough time because when they open their doors on day one, there's no one standing there, there's no one ready to jump in, there's no one excited for this. When I had sent out the email letting people know that, you know, it's going live tomorrow, be ready for it, I got flooded with emails of people being like, oh, I'm so excited for this. I have my alarm set up. I can't wait to be number one on here. And people were kind of like battling each other to be some of the first people to jump in here.
Yeah.
And we did 56,000 US dollars on the first day because of, honestly, because of LaunchBoom's advice and strategy. So the good thing is they don't do it for you. So they don't take any commission on your profits. It's just a flat fee, and they coach you and give you all the resources you need. But they've just been super valuable for me. So really happy with the result of LaunchBoom's coaching.
Yeah, they're great. And I mean, what I would say to anybody that, and again, I don't get paid by LaunchBoom or anything. I just, I had them on the podcast. I noticed, started seeing this trend of a lot of campaigns that are funding really well. We're using the LaunchBoom system. I read his book, right? So I read the book. What's really cool that these guys do is even if you don't want to sign up to the flat fee, because they do have they can have a team member that's assigned to you and it kind of coaches you for you to do it. Everything you need is also in the book.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want, you can go through the book and you can follow and there's free templates for you to use and free systems allow you to kind of follow the same methodology. It gives you access to the community as well. So you can join the community and ask other members questions and so forth. So it's definitely worth checking out. I know they had, I think it was a symposium or something like a week ago. And they had all these guest speakers from around the world that are, you know, seen as industry experts, kind of weighing in and doing like little 1 hour sessions on their perspective on how to, you know, make your campaign the best it can possibly be when you finally launch. So
they're surprisingly open with their information. They're very ready to give you the information you need to make it successful.
Yeah, they don't hold back, right? Like
No.
the only difference I think is there's like an actual like if you want to use their platform. So say if you want to run like I think it's like ads and use some of the metrics, the actual like tracking metrics, they have a specific proprietary platform they've created, and that's what that fee gives you. It gives you access to. You can use their platform for doing the metrics, but you can also track your own metrics too if you want. So definitely worth checking out. Again, it's not an advertisement for LaunchBoom by any stretch of the imagination, but
they're just so good that we spend our time talking about them.
They're good. I got to give props where props is due. So, all right. So Pantheum, explain, can you use as descriptive language as possible? Because we have a lot of listeners. Yeah. How do you play Pantheum? I'm going to show some visuals on screen while you're doing that and kind of explain the nuances of this game.
Cool. Happy to. The quickest way I can describe it, and this is a tagline that I've been using for the game, is if you take the card mechanics from Wingspan and the area control from SmallWorld and throw Greek mythology at it, you've got Pantheum.
Mm.
So if you like area control games where you're moving your god around, trying to control different territories, making sure that you're strategically moving to the right places, and if you like sort of engine building with getting new cards that give you new abilities to use every turn that are kind of permanently buffing you and getting you stronger and giving you new things to do from Wingspan kind of, then that's really what I put together into Pantheum. And it's got a really, really tight gameplay. It's 1 to 4 players. It plays pretty consistently about 40 to 45 minutes, and it's for ages 12 and up. The reason why it's 12 and up is there's a pretty good amount of strategy in here where you have to kind of see where you want the new world to be created. So the main game board is a grid of 4x4 tiles, and everybody has their own little secret plan of where you want to be adding forest, mountain, or river landscapes to this new world. And so when you're playing, some places you and your opponents may be working on the same thing. Maybe you both want forest in the bottom left corner, and so maybe you'll work together there. Or maybe you don't want it together, and so you'll be kind of competing against each other, but work together somewhere else. So everyone has their own sort of secret plan for how they want this new world to look. And so you're moving your god around, you're adding elements to the world and transforming those into these beautiful landscape tiles. During that time, you're recruiting these demigods, and the demigods are really what excited me. Is, you know, from reading the Percy Jackson series, I always thought it'd be really fun to like get my own crew of these Greek demigods together. So you've got Icarus, you've got Perseus, you've got Hercules, you've got all these well-known ones, as well as some of the lesser-known ones, you know, Chiron the Centaur and different people that are a bit lesser known in the Greek mythology. We've got great illustrations of those, and each one comes with their own ability that gives you a new power every turn. So you're going to be recruiting them onto your team, building out your own strategy. You know, can you recruit a team that is really malicious towards your other opponents? Or are you recruiting a team that is helpful so we all work together? Or are you going to be diplomatic with other people? So we've got different types of demigod cards in there. And those are really what kind of create your strategy. So the game starts out very easy to understand, very easy to learn. Each turn, you're just moving your god and adding elements. But as the game progresses and you get more and more of these demigods onto your team, they start breaking rules. They start adding new things to the game, and they start really defining your strategy. And that's where the satisfaction comes from. You know, I've play tested this probably over 150 times now, whether at my own game design group or with my friends or, you know, at conventions. And the thing that I keep on hearing that people like is they like recruiting this team of demigods. It's fun for them to see what kind of combos these different demigods are going to work together, how they're going to interact with each other, how they can outwit their other opponent by getting the right demigods together. And so that's really what kind of like brings this game together. We got some great illustrators that made great art on these cards. They're really satisfying to use, and it's just really fun to put together your team.
Yeah, the artwork is beautiful. Congratulations on that. Like, I was looking at the art,
Well,
I'm
thanks.
like, wow, this would not have been cheap.
we got some good artists, and thankfully I did take a bit of a shortcut with my wife being an artist, so
Oh, wow.
that definitely helped out a lot.
Yeah, it is.
Helping with direction and understanding the composition and really creating a nice cohesive scene together has really been that actually took more time than the game mechanic development itself.
Oh, for sure. Like,
creating...
it's super detailed, right? Like,
yeah.
It's interesting too when I saw the I think you call them the Divine Plan cards. It's almost remind me a little bit of code names.
Yes.
So those who play code names, where you have your little card that only you and your partner can see, and it shows on the grid kind of which cards are yours and which ones are the other players. It's kind of like that, right? Each player has their own kind of divine plan that just faces them, so they can see from their perspective of the board where certain things need to be placed, and that could compete or align with what other people are trying to do and their goals as well, right?
Yeah, you got that right. So everyone's got their own secret plan for where they want, and that tells you where you want to make your mountains, your forests, your landscapes. And every card overlaps with everyone else's card in 4 different places. So out of the 16 places you have, you're going to overlap randomly with 4 places with another person.
Yeah.
So with that, you kind of know, like, oh, maybe we'll work together over here and try to get points for making forest together over here. Or maybe just go, okay, he's making forest over there. I don't need to worry about it. I'm going to go somewhere else and work on my plan because he's going to make it for me, and I'll just take the credit for doing that. So it's a fun kind of like dynamic between people of figuring out where people are trying to build and either helping them or just letting them do the work for you.
Oh, that's awesome. And then I saw the one thing really I kind of zoned in on is this, is it a ruin stone, I guess you call it, or?
Oh, the element stone.
Element
so
stone,
that's
yeah.
So that's in the deluxe version.
I gotta
We've
show
got
this
this.
on the screen. This looks cool. Yeah.
this really cool D3 dice that we came up with that only has 3 sides. And so in the game, one of the first actions you do on your turn is you roll a dice, and if you have the normal D6 dice, on each side is 2 colors. So you'll either get red and blue. So that means you'll take a red element token and a blue element token. And that's perfectly fine. It works out just fine. But the D6 with 2 colors on it, it works, but there's nothing exciting about it.
Yeah.
So we came up with this 3-sided dice. It looks like a triangle that you elongated and then rounded it off so it looks like a stone.
It literally looks like a stone, yeah.
It's cool. Literally looks like a stone, and it's pretty big in your hand. And it's a resin cast dice, so it has that marbly stone texture in there.
Yeah.
And then each side is one of the colors engraved with the element symbol on it. So when you roll it, there's going to be 2 faces that face up. You're going to get a red face and a blue face on the triangle that are faced up, and those are the elements that you take. So I haven't really seen a dice before where you have to use both faces that show up on every roll. But it was something that we came up with that's really, really satisfying to use, because you're throwing this big stone across the board, and then the 2 faces that show up of the triangle are the colors that you take into your satchel. So it's working out really well, and it's a really fun way. It's just a cool improvement over the standard 6-sided dice.
Yeah, that's especially the 2 faces at the same time. See, this is an example of combining different mechanics and adding something kind of new, right? Like that was super cool. And then these minis too. These are gorgeous minis you got. Talk a little bit about these minis.
Yeah, so my wife and I, we actually went over to Athens, and we did a tour around Athens to try to get a better understanding of the Greek history and the architecture and the mythology of everything. And what we saw a lot is in gardens, they have the Greek gods on their statues, or on their columns. So, it's a statue of Ares holding his spear and his shield, but he's standing on this column, and it's a very Greek-style column.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what if I were to include that column in my minifigures, so it feels like you have the full statue that you would see in sort of a garden or, in front of a temple or something like that. So all of my minis, they're the minifigure that personifies the god themselves, and they're all standing on a Greek column. And on the column, we're screen printing the actual color and icon of the god. Because one thing that's always kind of been a drawback with minis is you just have a whole bunch of gray shapes out there. And sometimes you're like, oh, is my character the one with the spear or with the sword or with their hand going like this or their hand going like this?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's kind of hard to remember which character you are, which pointy character am I? So we're going to go ahead and screen print the color and the icon of each character onto the actual column face itself. So you'll be able to immediately tell which one you are. There's no confusion of a bunch of, gray blobs moving around the map. So you still have an identifying feature on your minifigure.
That's super cool. And then those screen printing, is that embossed too? I can see where those shapes are, or no?
So we're going to go ahead and just screen print on the top.
Okay.
The main reason is if people want to paint them, we don't want to have any in-depth or ingrained thing.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
If people want to go over here and paint over them and just make a clean column color, a realistic looking column, and then paint their god a certain color, they're welcome to do that. So we wanted to give people the option for that.
Oh, that's awesome. So, congrats. This game looks super awesome, man. I am so happy for you.
I really appreciate it.
Where do you go from here? So clearly you've got Archwood Games. So it's your first game, but you've got more coming, I think, right?
Yes.
Have you kind of mapped out a plan, or kind of what's the future look like for you?
Great question. I specifically named the game Pantheum, which is a made-up word, which is the plural of pantheons.
Yeah.
So you've got the Greek pantheon, the Roman pantheon, the Norse pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon. Pantheon just means a group of gods. So I kind of created this made-up word of plural of groups of gods. So my goal is to extend Pantheum, demigods of Olympia, which is the Greek theme, into Pantheum, the Roman theme, Pantheum, the Norse theme, Pantheum, the Egyptian theme, and just explore all these different really rich and interesting mythologies that are out there in an engaging way. Take something that happened in their culture or in the history, in the myths, and create a snapshot of that moment. Pantheum takes place immediately after the Greek gods and the Titans have had their war, and that war has destroyed the world. And so Zeus is telling the gods, okay, you guys need to go back down there and restructure the world, reshape the world, add forest, mountains, and landscapes, because it's just a barren desert world, And so we're all going down there, but we're all kind of squabbling about how we want it to look in the end.
Yeah.
So that's really the core theme. It's this snapshot, this moment in the Greek mythology that came to life through this game. So the goal is to take Pantheum and take an event that happened in Roman mythology, an event that happened in Egyptian mythology, just any of these captivating and interesting mythologies, and create more games around those.
Same mechanics, or would it be different, like a different playability altogether?
My goal is definitely different playability. I don't think I can take exactly, this situation and find something specifically in Roman, and I don't think I would want to. I think I want to take an event, something that was interesting that happened in Roman mythology, and give it its own set of mechanics around there.
Oh, that's cool.
At this point, with how many mechanics are out there and how creative you can get with things, I really think there's an opportunity to have a similar level of strategy and kind of a similar feel to the game where, you're still getting cards with beautiful illustrations, but maybe your goal is different. So I've got a whole notebook full of sort of mechanics and bits and pieces that I trimmed out of this version and would put into other versions that I think could fit well into other games.
Oh, that's super cool. Well, for those who want to check this out, I am going to put a link in the show notes, or they can follow that there, or you can search Pantheum on Kickstarter. I see you do have Project We Love status, so good chance that you're already showing up on the For You page for many people. But if they want to check it out, I will put a link in the show notes. Trevor, I wish you all the best for this campaign. I'm so excited for you guys. Still 22 days to go. The sky's the limit to where this thing's going to finish. You just got to be, I'm sure, super happy, and this is going to be an amazing year for you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I do want to give a shout out to all the people who have backed it, who've been following this on social media. I've been posting on social media sort of this journey that's been going on, and people have been engaged with it. And one of the posts that I put on there was that I was getting into this space and becoming sort of in the public eye. I was expecting a lot of negative feedback, that the internet can be a scary place.
Yep.
And I was shocked at the amount of encouragement and support and excitement from people that, I didn't really know, but they were online and they were excited for me. And so I just want to say thank you to all the people who have been supporting and encouraging and backing this. The comments on the Kickstarter are really just engaging. People are excited for it. They're offering great suggestions. And coming into this world as my first time, I was nervous.
Yeah.
But I've been so reassured by just the support and the kindness of the backers that have been out there. One of my backers saw the rule book and offered to translate it into Spanish for me. And I was like, no, you don't have to do that. And then the next message was him sending me the rule book translated in Spanish. And he's like, I'm just really excited about this, and I wanted to help out. So really, really thank you to everyone who's been involved, to everyone who's been following along, and everyone who's backed and is talking and active in the Kickstarter community. It's an awesome community to be a part of, and I'm so glad to be here. And hopefully we'll be able to stick around for a while. Oh,
sounds great. Well deserved. All the best, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking with you, James.
Cheers. Ciao. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley, produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.